Hello. Welcome back to my channel. I am Monet and you are watching Life as Monet. I told you guys that I was going to try to do more book challenges, more book tags on my channel, and I'm keeping that promise because I am really just an honorable woman. I've said this again and I keep living up to my reputation, the reputation that I created for myself. So this book challenge is all about creating the perfect book. And I'm not nervous, but I am unsure if I trust enough authors to create what I think would be my perfect book, because I know that I cannot repeat an author. It has to be one for each prompt or one for each aspect of the fantasy book. So let's just get started. Okay, so the first aspect of the book I have to choose a author for. That is going to be prose. The prose. I feel like my perfect book would have excellent sentence structure without being like overly prestigious. Prose. I feel pretty confident and I'm afraid to use an author too early, but for prose, I am going to choose Bridget Collins because her prose is some of the best I have ever read. I recently read The Portrayals and The Binding, and literally in my vlog, I talk about how like the way she weaves words together as if like they were always meant to be side by side. Talented. It's really a talent. So I'm gonna go with Bridget Collins for my prose. And the second aspect we have is the world building. Who would I want to build my world? I feel like I'm gonna go with Laini Taylor. The world building and like the layout in Strength to Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares, and then in Daughter of Smoke and Bone is some of what I really enjoyed about her writing. And I feel like if I wanted a sequel, she is really good about taking a wholly original idea and a wholly original world and like expanding upon it. Like she can give all of the worlds that she has created a big bang and somehow still connect them with one another. And I'm going with Laini Taylor to do my world building. Then we have our magic system. The magic system question really has me stumped. Who would I trust to build my magic system? I do not know. This is actually harder than I thought it was gonna be. Like, I feel like I would know if this was like a sci-fi book. I feel like I would know immediately who I wanted for like a sci-fi novel. But I don't know for fantasy. Who would I trust to build my magic system? I feel like I'm going to say Fonda Lee. Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna say Fonda Lee because I like how in the Greenbone Saga, the magic system is easy to understand and it still has like this epicness to it. The reader understands what it is, the depths and the limitations, and when something has pretty much gone awry, when a character is extremely weak, and the elements that makes them weak, and also in terms of like a battle scene, you immediately understand the strength and the weakness of the opponent. And so I'm going to go with Fonda Lee. I feel like if she had the chance to just focus on just building a magic system, I feel like I would be pleasantly surprised with what she comes up with. But even outside of that, I feel like her magic system would be solid, easy to follow and comprehend, but still be epic at the same time. Then I have to pick someone to write my characters. Definitely N.K. Jemisin. Definitely is going to be N.K. Jemisin is going to write my characters. Hands down. I feel like N.K. Jemisin's character work is hard to match. You will either love or hate her characters with true emotion, true passion behind her characters. And even the ones that like really get under my skin, they are fully realized and developed. They're like entirely three-dimensional and they're so distinct. I didn't even like The City We Became that much, but even the character work in there, like creating a different embodiment and avatar for each borough in New York. You entirely know where that character is from. They literally act like what the different boroughs of New York represent. Her character work is really unmatched, so I'm sticking with her. Now I need to pick someone to write my plot. I feel like this is going to be a bit of a surprise, but to write my plot, I would choose Neal Shusterman. I would. I think that he usually has these very unique plots and like synopsis to his stories, even if the execution is not all the way there. When you think about the Unwind series, it's literally a series where in America they have decided that abortion is illegal and you have to raise your child until the age of 13, but between 13 and 18 you can send your child off to be unwound, which is where they just break the child down for parts and give each part of their body, as long as it is utilized in some form of fashion in a transplant form, then it's entirely legal to do. I like the idea of that. And you have these group of children that were supposed to be unwound, but they end up running away. And instead of just going completely into hiding, they launched this entire revolution. He has a book about the state of California running completely out of water and the hysteria that comes around that. And I think that the plot of the Scythe series was very strong, especially the AI and like his starting point and his ending point in the books that I've read from him so far usually come full circle in a way to where the reader is like, okay, yeah, that was pretty cool. I think that I would tell Neal Shusterman to write my plot. So the next aspect of the book is action and battle. That is going to be Joe Abercrombie. Yeah, I love his action scenes. I love his battle scenes because it is brutal and it is gory and bloody, but in the midst of all the action, he has this way of just slowing down the pace and like really tuning in into certain parts of the book. A lot of the times, the POV that you're reading from, they walk you through their thought process of the decisions that they're making and like how it just makes logical sense for them to do this. And they do some of the most gruesome things that the reader really has ever seen. And I really enjoy that in terms of like a battle scene because you're already interested, you're already invested, but just getting this behind the scenes aspect while the scenes are occurring, like this, you know, like when you watch the behind the scenes of an action movie or some type of movie where like you can see the studio effects of what's happening and then also like how it's coming across on the screen. That is literally how it feels to me when I'm reading some of Joe Abercrombie's action and like battle scenes. And when his characters lose their mind, when they become completely unhinged, you know that they just became unhinged. And you're still reading from their POV and they still sound entirely logical. They're still killing people without blinking an eye. And it to them is something that needs to be done for their survival. They're being forced to do it. But as a reader, you're like, you have lost it. You've really lost your mind. Like, wow. Humor. For humor, I would want Michael J. Sullivan to write my humor, through which like how the characters interact. I know that he's not writing my characters in terms of like the characters themselves, but the interactions and like the things that are happening on page, I think that the camaraderie that Michael J. Sullivan is able to establish with his characters would be very interesting to follow, and just overall little Easter eggs throughout the books that have the reader like giggling because you know something that the characters don't. So there's a sense of amusement for the reader as you watch these characters try to like make sense of this puzzle, and you have an inkling, you kind of know too. And he also has this way of flipping the entire book on his head and everybody's wrong. You were wrong, you thought you knew, they were wrong, they thought they knew, and all of that just makes good humor in a book for me. Like the irony, I think that Michael J. Sullivan does a good irony and a good aha, like you thought you had it. Romance. Who would I want to write the romance in my book? I don't really even care for romance in my fantasy stories, so who would I want to write the romance in my book? Erin Morgenstern. I want her to write my romance. I think that she does a really good job of bringing characters together and making you want to root for them. And not just like in a one-dimensional way. Like her characters could easily be swapped out for like the sun and the moon and like winter and summer falling in love. Like they transcend just the human form that they are put in. If you've read The Night Circus and The Starless Sea, her love and the way she writes romance is literal and figurative at the same time. It is realistic and fantasy and like whimsical. It is a happily ever after and like a fever dream all at the same time. So I feel like I would want Erin Morgenstern to write my romance. Hero. Who do I want to write my hero? I have already used Michael J. Sullivan because I feel like I would have said him to write my hero. I am going to go with Catherine Arden to write my hero. Yeah. When I read the Winter Night trilogy, I enjoyed the main character, but I didn't always have faith in her. I didn't always have hope in her. I didn't always believe in her ability. And so to follow a character for 3 books and still be unsure whether or not they're going to be able to pull off this epic thing, even though you know that like they are the main character of the story, the author has the power of the pen, and you know the main character has to be successful because this is the point of the story that she's telling. And still knowing all of that, somehow she managed to break our main character down for parts, and she gave her so many aspects of codependency, and like she gave her so many crutches that when we got to the climax and the peak of the trilogy, she removed those codependencies and those crutches. And it's like, you've been watching this person grow, you've been watching them develop and become wise and enlightened and skilled. They've done that with this community and like this support around them, and when they lose it, you're just like, are you strong enough to do this? And I want to be on the edge of my seat. Even though I know it's going to end good, I still want to be nervous. I still like that feeling. And Catherine Arden did a really good job with that, I feel like, in the Bear and the Nightingale trilogy. And then lastly, for the villain. Now this one is hard. This one's really hard. Robin Hobb is really great at writing villains and antagonists. Actually, my favorite part of the Farseer trilogy was Regal. Like, Regal was really undefeated. Like, I mean, he was winning left and right. He could not be touched. I don't think I've ever really seen a villain be so far ahead of the protagonist, so far ahead of what is supposed to be the hero of this story. And even like the villain in Jade City, I feel like was pretty solid. But like, I mean, Robin Hobb has a way of making you feel like, yeah, they're not gonna win. Like, this is the villain of all villains. Like, this guy is maniacal and smart and like diabolical. He has a layout and a plan. Like, the scheming that her villains are able to do. I feel like I'm gonna go with Robin Hobb because every time I read her books, that is some of the best villain work I really have seen. Like, I love her villains. I'm a fan. She makes me a fan of villains completely. And that is my perfect book. For our prose, we're gonna have Bridget Collins. For our world building, we would have Laini Taylor. For our magic system, we would have Fonda Lee. For our characters, we would have N.K. Jemisin. For our plot, we would have Neil Schusterman. For our action and our battle scenes, we would have Joe Abercrombie. For our humor, we would have Michael J. Sullivan. For our romance, we would have Erin Morgenstern. For our hero, we would have Catherine Arden. And for our villain, we would have Robin Hobb. And now, I am very excited for this book. Like, I kind of want it to happen. Like, it seems perfect. And I guess that's what makes it the perfect book challenge. I will see you guys next time.